How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another skill cap video. Patch 11.4 has arrived, so today we are setting you all up with the best champions to main for every single role. The video has been structured around champions who are strong in the meta and who also have very low ban rates. Although champs like Darius and Hecarim are extremely strong for their respective roles, both have astronomical ban rates, so maining these picks just aren't reliable and therefore won't be featured in this video. If you're new here, be sure to hit the subscribe button as we have much more meta content cooking up for you guys as we speak. If there are any picks that you think could have made the cut for this video that we didn't include, then be sure to let us know down in the comments below. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Fresh off his base AD buffs this patch, we have Tryndamere as one of the best top laners to main. Trynd will see great benefits from that buff, and he's one of the few top laners who hasn't been negatively affected by the item changes in previous patches. So many Bruiser picks were hurt by the Gore Drinker, Ravenous Hydra, and Sterix nerfs, but Tryndamere spins right on by, as he doesn't need to build a single one of those items. With his direct buff in 11.4 and other top laners indirectly nerfed, Tryndamere is set to start dominating the top lane meta for solo queue. There are many variations to Tryndamere's build right now, so we'll give you a few to try out. His best consistent performer is a Gale Force Rush into Navori, Quick Blades, and Infinity Edge. This one can work great against squishies or skill shot oriented champs. Against tanks, you can swap out Gale Force for Kraken Slayer. Even Immortal Shield Bow has been performing extremely well after its buffs from 11.3. For more of a Bruiser setup, Gore Drinker into Essence Reaver and then Death's Dance is more popular over in Korea and works super well. The rune page is a lot more simple, as you'll want to take Lethal Tempo for your keystone and run Resolve secondary. Spin to win seems to be the theme for our top lane picks this patch, as Garen will be the second champ up. Similar to Tryndamere, Garen hasn't been affected as much as other top lane picks the past few patches with item nerfs. Stridebreaker has yet to be hit, and that item is just way too good for Garen, which is making him extremely strong. The dash and slow from the active is only on a 20-second cooldown, and this can be reduced with ability haste, so it just really allows Garen so much more access onto his targets and crazy strong sticking power. He even gets better here for 11.4, with one of his worst performing matchups in Camille being nerfed. Riven's play rate has really shot up over the past patch since the buff to her E, which is great for Garen since he's always been a really solid pick in that matchup. Everything is just trending in Garen's favor for 11.4, and the insane thing is that he was already one of the best picks last patch. So for a complete build, rush a Stridebreakers into Deadmans and then Sterix. Even after the Deadmans and Sterix nerfs, this build heavily outperforms anything else. For the rune page, take Conqueror as your keystone and roll with Resolve secondary. The third top laner our analysts are super high on for this patch is Cho'gath. Cho is one of the most consistent performers across every elo bracket for the meta, and he's even more insane for low elo. He wins a ton against highly contested top lane picks like Malphite, who he holds a 56% win rate against. The only pick he loses to in the top 10 most played is Darius, so we just recommend banning him out. Cho'gath's rise in power was due in part to a bug fix change to his E in 11.1, along with tank item buffs. Ever since Frostfire Gauntlet and Stoneplate were buffed back in 11.2, Cho has been a monstrous top lane pickup. The nerf to his E in 11.3 really didn't affect him much at all, as he continues to run right over most of the top lane meta. Your build will be a Frostfire Gauntlet rush into Thornmail or Force of Nature second and then Stoneplate third. Rush item can also be Turbo Chem Tank if you want easier access into fights. Run with Grasp as your keystone and take Precision for your secondary runes. Let's move on to the jungle now, and kicking things off, we have Nunu. The jungle XP and gold nerfs this patch means that hard farming your jungle will be a lot less valuable. Junglers who can gank early and often while not having to rely as much on gold and XP to be useful will rise further above. That's exactly why our analysts have chosen Nunu as the best jungler to main in 11.4. Nunu ticks both of those boxes, as his early game impact is insanely good, and he doesn't need the resources that other carry junglers like Kha'Zix and Hecarim do in order to succeed. Nunu's strong objective control also gives him an edge up on many other picks, as it's another reason he can remain useful even with less gold and XP. Nunu is one of the best junglers at making the enemy jungler completely useless, as his invade plays are super reliable. This becomes even more impactful for 11.4, since if you're able to put the enemy jungler behind, they will have an even harder time coming back. The standard Nunu build is Sunfire Rush, Deadman second, and then Thornmail or Spirit Visage third. Roll with Phase Rush as your keystone, and pair it with Precision for secondary. A jungle pick who has skyrocketed in power over the past few patches has been Mundo, as we even bumped him into S tier on our jungle tier list. For the highest of elos, the pick falls off a little bit as Grievous Wound purchases come in way more often, but in the lower ranks, Mundo jungle's power level is at an all-time high. He saw multiple buffs a few patches back, and combined with his new Turbo Chem Tank build, which was also just buffed, it allows him to go exactly where he pleases. The Chem Tank Rush is being spammed especially over in Korea and is the perfect item for Mundo as it gives him a relatively cheap one-item spike that turns him into a whole nother monster. With his ultimate running and Chem Tank pops, you can assure the enemy won't be going anywhere. Besides healing reduction countering his kit, the only other massive weakness Mundo struggles with is being way too easily kited and not being able to reach his targets, but Chem Tank completely alleviates that now. Even a Frostfire Gauntlet is performing great on the pick as well, so you can try out both mythics and see which fits your playstyle the best. After your Chem Tank or Frostfire Rush, go into Spirit Visage or Thornmail. These should be interchanged as second and third items based on what resists you need the most. Fleet Footwork is Mundo's best keystone, and combine it with Inspiration Secondary. And then our third jungle pick is going to be Rammus. Rammus' strong and simple to execute early ganks are going to make him even better in 11.4. Like we mentioned earlier when talking about Nunu, your hard farm junglers or scaling picks will struggle more than others due to those XP nerfs. Rammus is another pick who is less reliant on a heavy gold income to be useful, and is arguably the best level 3 gank power for any jungle pick. If you take Ghost as your summoner spell, then this just makes your gank so much more insane, and whenever the spell is up, it's pretty much a guaranteed free kill. The best Rammus in NA, Lord Semi, runs Ghost every single game and has reached rank 38 with a 66% win rate on his Rammus. Generally, copying the best is the way to go, and in this case, we'd highly recommend doing just that. The build will be Chem Tank Rush into Thornmail second and then Stone Plate third. Take Aftershock as your keystone and then pair it up with Sorcery secondary. Once considered one of the most broken picks at the start of Season 11, has tailed off a little bit and is now great to main. The champ we're talking about is Ekko mid. At one point this season, Ekko had around a 30% ban rate, but that has dropped to about 8% now, which makes him way more easily accessible. The name of the game with Ekko is playing for your item spikes. Prior to Rocket Belt, Ekko can struggle a bit early on, but starts hitting like a truck, especially on Lichbane or Nashor's completion. Be consistent, farm up early, and your mid-game will be golden. If you can hit these spikes and play around ult cooldown, then Ekko can provide you with an immense amount of solo carry potential. The full build will be Rocket Belt into Lichbane or Nashor's second and then Rabadon's third. Whether you go Lich or Nashor's comes down to preference, but also based on the game you're in. When against comps who have heavy burst or hard CC, Lichbane will be better to provide you with a hit-and-run playstyle. If you think you'll have the opportunity to throw in an extra auto or two in fights, then Nashor's will outdamage Lichbane. Take Electrocute for your keystone, and then Inspiration secondary. With the importance of early game, snowballing becomes even more relevant after the jungle XP nerfs. This in turn can indirectly buff certain mid lane picks. Talon not only has been directly buffed for 11.4, but he also benefits from where the jungle meta is headed. With hard farm junglers taking the backseat in 11.4, this is perfect for Talon as he loves a fast-paced game with lots of early skirmishing. Talon's high level of mobility from E allows for him to invade the enemy jungler very freely as well. If you get ahead early, Talon is one of the best picks at catching the enemy jungler out and forcing them behind, which is even more powerful now due to those jungle XP nerfs. Talon's ban rate is as low as it's ever been, so you'll be sure to get your hands on the pick in every single game. The new build going around on Talon is a Prowler's Claw Rush, as the item provides great synergy with his kit. If Talon's Q is used in melee range, then the spell crits for extra damage, so instead of having to use Q for the gap close, you can jump in with Prowler's Claw active, and it makes your all-in burst so much more insane. Second item will be Serpent's Fang or Yomu's, depending on if you need the shield busting or not, and then round things out with Edge of Night third. For your rune page, run Electrocute for the added burst and Sorcery secondary to bolster it even further. The third champion our analysts recommend you looking into maining for 11.4 is Galio. Consistency is really what you get with this champion, as he can be picked into many different matchups and has the ability to be useful even without snowballing early on. He completely shuts down so many meta picks like Katarina, Fizz, Sylas, and Ekko, which is a huge reason as to why he should be in your champ pool. Galio's strong shove and roam power makes him a perfect pick for solo queue, as you have the ability to provide constant pressure for your team and reach fights that break out in an instant. His strong gank assist will become even better for this patch as well, with an emphasis on those early game jungle picks rising up. The build for Galio is one Shurelya's or Rocket Belt for your rush item into Zanya's and then Demonic Embrace. If you're really snowballing early on, then Rocket Belt can be great to add an extra layer of burst, but in games where you're even or behind, Shurelya's is perfect as it's the cheaper option and provides you with stronger engage power. Both Predator and Aftershock can work for Galio's Keystone, so it just comes down to preference or the matchup in hand. Aftershock is great to counter assassin picks and gives you extra tankiness, whereas Predator is better in ranged matchups where you can't fight as much and will be better off to shove and roam. Sorcery will always be the best secondary page for Galio. Let's now head down to the bot lane and break down our 3 best ADCs to main. Sivir will be the first one up, and as a result of the recent nerfs to many top-tier ADCs, it's making these picks like Sivir, who have been so close to breaking into the meta, finally start to push through. Each change Sivir's received over the past few months have been buffs, so with the likes of Samira, Kai'Sa, and Jhin all being nerfed in just these past few patches, it indirectly makes her even better. In the past, Sivir has been seen as a rather boring ADC pick, but with the new lethality build going around, it puts a unique twist on the champ and actually makes her really fun to play. Sivir's only banned 0.2% of the time as well, so unless the enemy team picks her, you'll have no problem maining the Battle Mistress. The build is a Manamune Rush, Duskblade 2nd, and Cyrilda's Grudge or Edge of Night 3rd. It's tailored around spamming your Q off cooldown due to the infinite mana, while the damage hits super hard thanks to the large AD ratio on Sivir's Q. You'll run Lucidity Boots instead of Greaves since you'll want your Q on the shortest cooldown possible to get off that consistent poke. Dark Harvest as your keystone will further amplify the burst, and then run Sorcery for secondary. Falling but not far enough to remove him from our best ADCs to main is Jhin. He was nerfed a few patches back, which dropped his power level slightly, but nowhere near as far as where Samira and Kai'Sa will drop after their nerfs. Jhin's ban rate has started to settle down a bit, which makes him way more reliable to main. Back in 11.1, he was sliced from the Rift in over 20% of games, but that's now dropped to below 8%. As long as Gale Force doesn't receive any more nerfs, you should have a great time dominating with Jhin in the coming patches. He provides you with a nice mix of damage and utility, which helps him rise above the ADCs trailing in behind. The long-range pick threat combined with his insane burst potential later on gives him more than one avenue of ways to carry games. After you rush Gale Force, grab Collector 2nd and then Fire Cannon 3rd. Take Dark Harvest as your keystone and roll with Precision secondary. And then our third ADC to main is one our analysts believe to be the most sleeper OP for the coming patch, Tristana. Over the past few patches now, she's actually held a very respectable win rate at above 51%, and that will only rise higher now for 11.4 with nerfs to Kai'Sa and Samira. We really like Tristana as a solo carry pick due to her insane burst potential with Hail of Blades and synergy with aggressive meta supports. There really isn't a single ADC who can match Tristana's all-in burst damage at level 2, and if you're playing her with someone like Leona, Rell, or Thresh, then snowballing the early game is so effortless. Trist is also extremely good at getting a lead and then transitioning that around the map with her crazy tower-taking power. Once you win lane, rotate mid or top, throw a bomb down on the tower, and watch it melt as you pick up free global gold for your entire team. Build-wise for Trist, you want to rush a Gale Force or Kraken Slayer into a Phantom Dancer 2nd and then Infinity Edge or Fire Cannon 3rd. PD 2nd has now become so much better on Trist and is outperforming Stormrazor since its buffs last patch. Gale Force and Fire Cannon are the two safer, reliable options, whereas Kraken and IE will provide you with the biggest punch. Like we mentioned earlier, take Hail of Blades every game as your keystone and then pair it up with Precision secondary. And then for support, kicking off our top 3 will be the newest addition to the role, Rell. Rell just barely made the cut for the video as her ban rate has been on the rise as of recent, but still sits right around 10%. As players have finally figured out how to play the champ, Rell's true power is really starting to come out, and it's exceptional to say the least. Rell's got a really nice mix of engage and peel power, allowing her to play aggressive when she can sense a pick opportunity, and vice versa sit back and provide her team with massive amounts of peel if being engaged on. When you have champs like Leona, Alistar, and Thresh with above 10% play rates, it makes her the perfect pick to counter the meta. The standard build for Rell is a Locket Rush, Zeke 2nd, and Knight's Vow 3rd. If you want a more aggressive engage setup though, Turbo Chem Tank is one pros are really liking instead of Locket. For the runes, Aftershock will be your keystone, and then run with Precision secondary. Maokai has fallen out of his Flavor of the Month status, however, it's really not justified as his power level isn't much lower than it was before his nerfs. His play rate has dropped a considerable amount, but this is just due in part to people overreacting to small nerfs and jumping off the train when it's still moving just fine. Maokai is still most definitely an S tier support pick, and with his ban rate now at only 1.8%, you won't have any problem spamming him for free low in 11.4. After the nerfs to his E, the full AP version of Maokai is still very strong, but tanky engage Mao is actually the setup seeing more success right now. In games where you really lack any engage and need a frontline, then look the way of the tank setup. If your team's in desperate need of magic damage, or you already have really strong engage out of top and jungle, then that's where full AP would fit in best. The setup for AP Maokai is an E max first, Q second, and W last with Imperial Mandate Rush, Demonic Embrace second, and Zhonya's third. Comet will be your keystone paired up with Inspiration secondary. On the other hand, if you want to try out the beefier frontline build going around, it's a Chem Tank Rush into Deadman's Plate and then Thornmail third. You'll max your Q out first, followed by W and then E last. The runes will be Aftershock instead of Comet, and the same secondary page with Inspiration. Alright guys, to round everything out with our third and final best support to main for 11.4, we have Thresh. For multiple patches in a row now, Thresh has very quietly locked himself a spot at the top of the meta and continues to stomp on his competition. Thresh is just such a well-rounded support as he provides you with a little bit of everything and does each extremely well. Strong pick threat, great peel, amazing zone, and massive playmaking potential. There are very few things to not like about the pick. Thresh is one of the few champions in the meta who actually has a positive win rate into Seraphine and other squishy meta supports like Senna, Janna, and Nami. If played well, his hook and level 2 all-in can completely shut down those champs, and you can find yourself snowballing out of control early on. The build on your Thresh will be a Locket Rush into Zeke's and Knight's Vow if you want more defensive power. In games where you're hard-smashing lane and want to continue stomping, swap the Locket out for Shurelya's to give you really insane engage. Take Guardian as your keystone. Aftershock has been slowly falling out of priority on Thresh just due to the reliability that Guardian provides. The stats even back it up as well. Guardian wins about 2% more than Aftershock in 11.4. That's just about going to wrap things up for today, guys. We hope this helps give you some guidance on the best picks available to main in 11.4 for future content just like this to help you get ahead and stay ahead of the meta. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications as this content is very time sensitive. With all that being said, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and we will see you all in the next one.